When using a virtual wallet, you can't reach into your back pocket to see if your money is still there, and that makes the use of virtual forms of money hard to track. This week, the value of bitcoins, a virtual currency, plummeted when one of the exchanges where they are traded was hacked. Now, internet security experts are saying don't use it if you can avoid it. Stahl joins us from Los Angeles. He's president of cybersecurity firm Citadel Information Group and has worked with the government to secure nuclear facilities and the White House. So, Stan, first of all, this service Bitcoin has been getting a lot of attention lately. But what are the security risks of using so-called virtual currency?
Well, thanks, Emily. It's a pleasure to be here. And basically, you've got all the risks that you have doing business on the internet in general. But in addition to that, since we're talking about what is equivalent to some form of currency, you've also got the kind of risks that, frankly, 100 years ago we saw as businesses in the West grew up and there'd be local banks, each having their own currency. There was no national currency, anything like that. So basically, if you took, $100 worth of currency from the Southwest Bank of Northern Manhattan or something, I mean, is that going to be worth anything when you go back to collect the money? It is if the dollars are there, if the gold's there, but it's not worth anything otherwise. And that's frankly the situation we're in now.
Now, banks, of course, have several layers of security, which has become more and more important in this age of cyber attacks. Is there a secure way to use virtual currency, or would you warn people away from it completely?
At this stage in the history of the internet, I'd stay away from it. Why put your money at risk if you don't need to?
Now, we're seeing more and more companies and government organizations succumbing to cyber attacks. You worked at the White House. What do you think the government's best approach is to overcoming or staving off these cyber threats?
Again, a real good question, because there's a lot that everybody can do, including the government. Certainly, on the government side, we need more laws like breach disclosure laws, like we've got in 48 states right now, that if a company knows that there's been an attack that has compromised information of citizens, it's got to notify those people. There's been laws like that, bills like that in Congress for several years. I think it's time to get those out into the public. Another thing that a lot of people are now talking about, as a consumer, if your bank account or my bank account becomes a victim of online fraud because the bad guys get our passwords and user IDs, the banks will make us whole as consumers. That doesn't translate to businesses. It would make a lot of sense, I'm told, by the banking community itself even, that to extend what's called Reg E, so that it applies both to corporate accounts, commercial accounts, as well as to consumer accounts. That would help. But fundamentally, this is a problem that government by itself cannot solve. Really, everybody's got to take a look at their use of the internet, their protections on their computer, and ask themselves, am I doing everything I can do to keep from being a victim?
Sega is yet another gaming company that succumbed to a hack attack after Sony and Nintendo. We saw during the WikiLeaks saga, Amazon and PayPal do a pretty good job of staving off attacks. What companies out there are getting it right? What companies have good defenses in place?
Well, first, it'd be great to name some of those companies, but to do so, Emily, frankly, would put them at risk of groups like Anonymous and LulzSec and all. So let's not talk about specific companies. Let's talk instead about some of the specific things that companies can do. Most important, absolutely positively, the most important thing a business, a not-for-profit, any organization can do to help protect itself from becoming a victim of cybercrime is to raise the question of cybersecurity all the way up to the top levels of management. Give you an example of what I mean by that. In the 1980s, Motorola decided it needed to do a better job of making sure the quality was built into their products. And Bob Galvin, president of Motorola at that time, put quality number one on the list that he and his fellow executives would review every week. When they reviewed what happened last week at Motorola, they'd look at sales and profits and all the usual kinds of business things, but they also looked at quality. Right now, every business, every organization in America needs to do that same thing with security. Put security up there as one of those top things that you pay attention to.
So what do you imagine is going on behind the scenes at many of these businesses right now? Are they scrambling to get their security plan in place?
You bet it. You bet you. They are scrambling right now. It's at some level what we're witnessing is that perfect storm of the cyber criminals, groups like Anonymous, groups like LulzSec. They're all out doing their things, and what they're proving, what they're establishing, is that no company can sit down and say, pat itself on the back and say, we're doing all we can do. Every company out there needs to be taking another close look, a hard look at what it's doing, and making sure, first of all, that they're doing the right things defensively, but then also making sure that they're on top of their computer networks, their information, their online banking, all of those things sufficiently so that should there be a breach, should there be a loss, they'll be able to even know it and react accordingly. My fear is too many businesses out there wouldn't even know if they've been attacked.
Thanks so much to Stahl from Citadel Information Group. This is a story we are going to continue to follow, these cybersecurity threats ratcheting up. And we have